Welcome back to the Midnight Narrator, where the sanctity of family ties is twisted into something grotesque, and the denial of death breeds unimaginable horrors. Tonight, we explore a chilling tale of a house shrouded in an unnatural stillness, a family gripped by a delusion so profound it defies reality, and a horrifying truth concealed behind drawn curtains and forced smiles. Prepare to confront a reality where the boundaries between the living and the dead are blurred, and the act of ungrieving becomes a descent into madness. Join me as we unravel the terrifying secrets of the House of Ungrieving. Turn down the lights, steel your nerves, and listen as we step into a dwelling where death has taken root, and the living refuse to acknowledge its presence. A nervous tremor runs through me as I commit these words to paper. I've considered contacting law enforcement, yet I remain uncertain if my sanity is fracturing, or if my entire family's has already shattered. Perhaps this is merely a horrific dream, and I shall awaken shortly. To provide context, I am a sole offspring and the only descendant of my surviving grandparent, my grandmother. Some weeks prior, during my workday, a phone communication arrived from my mother relaying the news that my grandmother had suffered a fall within her kitchen. Mother conveyed that my Uncle Leo was present and accompanying her in the ambulance. Emergency medical personnel suspected a broken hip and a deep gash to her foot. Though sedated for pain, she remained coherent, though unwell. I immediately inquired if I should meet them at the medical facility, but Mother demurred. No, remain at work. I will apprise you of further details as they emerge. And so, I waited. I hold deep affection for my grandmother, yet she is perhaps the most resolute woman I have ever encountered. She possesses a natural cure for practically every ailment and disdains medical intervention. Thus, I anticipate she will prove challenging while confined to a hospital bed. Compounding matters, grandmother adamantly refuses to utilize a walker or cane despite her advanced years and will not relocate from her residence to a care facility. Half a year prior, Uncle Leo had taken up residence with her, ostensibly to offer assistance. Though unspoken, I have long suspected his motives were more aligned with rent-free living. With nothing else occupying my time, I remained at work, preoccupied and awaiting communication from Mother bearing updates. This call did not materialize until well after my return home, as I was preparing for sleep. Apparently, grandmother had regained consciousness and was progressing satisfactorily. Surgical intervention would be necessary for the broken hip, but they had successfully addressed the wound to her foot, suturing and dressing it. I requested to converse with her, and Mother held the phone to grandmother's ear, allowing me to express my affection and promise a visit upon her discharge. The medical facility restricted visitors to 2, and Mother and Leo remained steadfastly at her side. "Hello, dear." Grandmother's voice reached me through the phone. "I am well, though they are keeping me captive." Mother's voice, tinged with a hint of impatience, explained in the background the necessity of surgical procedure. "So they inform me." Grandmother exhaled sharply. "I am quite well, Anna. Visit when I am home and we shall play cards." I smiled, affirmed my intention to visit and bid her farewell. She was discharged the subsequent week and returned home. The hip replacement had been successful, yet a severe infection had manifested on her foot. These conditions rendered grandmother bedridden. Once she had settled at home, Mother granted me permission to visit, so I prepared a homemade broth with dumplings and seated myself beside her bed as Mother patiently fed it to grandmother with a spoon. "There you are, Mother," my mother encouraged as grandmother sipped the liquid from the utensil. I could discern that grandmother was severely disoriented. I had anticipated a lecture regarding the indignity of requiring a bedside commode, but the potent combination of pain medication and infection fighters rendered her merely murmuring with discontent at Mother A.S. and Leo, as constant fussing. By and large, she appeared in good spirits, if exceedingly weary. After approximately 2 hours and 2 minor soup mishaps, I prepared to depart. Mother escorted me to the entrance. "She will recover, Anna," Mother reassured. "Leo and I are managing everything. Do not fret." I departed, feeling optimistic that my grandmother would soon regain her spirited nature. But that visit with the broth occurred over 2 weeks prior, Shortly thereafter, Mother initiated a temporary leave from her employment and isolated themselves within Grandmother's residence, along with Uncle Leo. Each time I initiated contact, Mother presented a new reason as to why a visit from me was inadvisable. Potential for contagion, seasonal illnesses, exhaustion, digestive troubles, and so on. Initially, I accepted these reasons superficially. They seemed plausible, yet I cannot even now persuade Mother to allow Grandmother to speak to me on the phone. I prepared more broth yesterday and delivered it, but Uncle Leo greeted me at the entrance, stating it wasn't opportune, but he would ensure she received it. "And we consistently inform her of your calls," he asserted. I noted an overpowering aroma, floral yet sterile, emanating from the doorway. "Your mother is constantly sanitizing," he elucidated. Frustrated, I expressed my unease to my parent during my homeward journey, yet he took Mother's side, as he often did. "She has always been exceptionally attached to her mother," he reminded me. "And Leo? Well, this is typical of Lou. You see, this is their initial true confrontation with their mother's advancing years. They are merely being defensive and afraid of her loss." I conceded his point, and I concluded the call feeling somewhat more at ease. On Grandmother's 89th natal day, however, I resolved to accept no refusal. I would deliver her gift, the latest suspense novel by her preferred writer. I arrived at the residence in the waning hours of daylight and observed that all window coverings were drawn, given it was a mild vernal afternoon. It was Grandmother's usual practice to have windows unlatched and curtains drawn back, admitting both natural light and ventilation. I rapped twice upon the main entrance, but no response came. I rapped once more. Still no answer. I attempted the door handle, yet it was secured. I hesitated briefly, considering perhaps the residence was unoccupied. Perhaps Grandmother had a post-operative appointment with her physician. However, both vehicles remained parked on the drive, so I rapped once more forcefully. The entrance parted slightly and a putrid stench wafted out, almost suffocating me. "Mother!" I cried out as her countenance materialized on the other side of the portal. "What is that odor?" Upon recognizing me, she widened the opening by another increment. "The infection has intensified, but we are observing it closely. Should I summon emergency medical services?" I inquired in a state of alarm, retrieving my mobile device from my pocket. No, Anna." She swiftly calmed my fears. "We are managing it. I collected her antibiotic refills earlier and consulted with her surgeon via telephone." Assuaged, I inhaled deeply, yet the stench was so overwhelming. "Mother, that unnatural smell is cut ungodly. Why not improve the ventilation?" "We attempted to," she responded. However, she became chilled. Mother simply shrugged and remained stationary. "May I enter?" I inquired, straining to see past her into the poorly illuminated interior. Because of the aroma, I truly did not wish to enter. Yet if Grandmother was unwell, I wished to check on her. "I do not deem it advisable," she responded softly. "And where is Uncle Leo?" I asked. "He's upstairs, in his quarters." Her tone was intended to be calming, yet the stench revolted me. Such an odor could only indicate something dire. I urged the door further inward, and Mother voiced her objection. "Perhaps you could return at a more suitable time when she's improved. I assure you that Leo and I are fully managing the situation." Within the cooking area, the stench was pronounced, intertwined with the scent of disinfectant. It was unclear whether this was an improvement or detriment. At minimum, allow me to see her briefly and offer her birthday token. Mother noticed the carefully packaged present in my hands and sighed. "Naturally," she said. "My apologies, truly. We've been terribly engrossed. I am certain she will appreciate it greatly." Precisely then, Uncle Leo descended the staircase with a brisk pace and offered me a smile. "Descendant, Grandmother will be overjoyed by your presence." I gazed at my mother in disbelief. She was now directing her gaze downwards. "What is transpiring?" Uncle Leo proceeded along the corridor, and I could overhear him as he unlatched Grandmother's chamber door. "Mother, you have a birthday caller." The odor within the dwelling was assaulting my senses, yet I would not betray my revulsion to Grandmother. Mother guided me down the hallway to grandmother's room, urging me to present a cheerful demeanor. I affixed a forced smile to my features as I rounded the bend into the chamber. Grandmother was in a seated position upon the bed, and Uncle Leo had situated himself on the bedding adjacent to her. His form largely obstructed the view, but I could discern her feet projecting from beneath the blanket. The digits of her right foot exhibited blackened flesh, decaying nails, and suppurating lesions. The linens beneath her heel were discolored yellowish by desiccated purulence. Leo was chattering at length, but grandmother offered no rejoinder. "Isn't it pleasant for your descendant to visit on your natal day, Mother? Indeed, you have endured much this past month. She bears a gift for you." He gestured towards me in anticipation, his silhouette shifting just enough to partially reveal grandmother's figure where she sat propped against the cushions. I shall attempt to convey the dread I beheld, though I am aware language will fall short of capturing its true essence. My stomach lurched and I became immobile. Grandmother's vacant, inanimate orbs gazed directly forward at the wall, unmoving and clouded. Her eyelids were encrusted, her jaw was slackly open, lips drooping, exposing a grayish film that had begun to coat her tongue. Leo patted her limb whilst Mother quickly drew the blanket further up over her feet. I scarcely registered as Leo elaborated upon her sensation of cold due to the infection. He lifted a tissue from the container on the bedside table and commenced to blot at the corner of her mouth. "Her verbal communication is limited due to the potent sedation she is receiving," he explained. I could not tear my gaze from the ashen gray complexion of grandmother's face and its unnatural drooping, unrelated to her age. Insects droned in the air above, and Mother seized a swatter, commencing to strike at them with vigor. "Damn insects," she mumbled. "They persist in their harassment." One of the insects orbited grandmother's face and alighted upon her gaping mouth. Uncle Leo merely waved it away. "She has been maintaining this seated slumber posture for approximately the past week," Mother clarified, patting grandmother's now concealed feet. "The discomfort is too intense for her to recline. We attempted it, but her muscles convulse and she is rendered immobile." My knees trembled and I could barely refrain from retreating from the chamber, stretching out to and leaning against the facing wall. Nausea welled in my throat. "It's all right, descendant," spoke Leo from within the chamber. "I am aware it is distressing to witness her current condition, yet that is precisely why your mother and I are present. To provide care, we have resolved against returning her to that medical facility. Their prior treatment has been demonstrably inadequate. You observed her foot and the consequences of their interventions. It is incomprehensible to me how a hospital could permit gangrene to progress undetected. We have been cleansing her with sponges at regular intervals, exposing her feet to air and altering her dressings frequently. This regime appears to be beneficial, does it not, Mother?" she inquired, compressing grandmother's ankle. I attempted to lower my head to my knees, yet the odor was so overwhelming. Mother exited into the corridor and placed her hand upon my shoulder. I jerked back. "Oh, descendant, my apologies," she said. "This is the rationale behind my dissuasion from your visit. The gangrenous scent is difficult to endure, and I wish to spare you from witnessing her in this state." Being at a loss as to any other course of action, I drew her into the cooking area and stated in my most even tone, "Mother, why did you not inform me that grandmother had expired?" Mother's expression remained unaltered. She merely regarded me. "To what do you refer, descendant? She is present. You just observed her." "Indeed, I did observe her," I conceded, gesturing towards the chamber at the end of the corridor where the stench was so potent I was nearing unconsciousness. "But grandmother is deceased, Mother. You are aware of this fact, correct?" Mother's brows furrowed, and she tightened her lips. "Hear me, descendant. I understand this is challenging for you. Indeed, it is difficult for us all. However, if you are uttering these words merely to inflict pain, it will be ineffective. Cease this childish behavior. Your parent is en route with a celebratory confection." The chamber commenced to whirl, and I needed to evacuate that dwelling forthwith. I deposited the gift upon the kitchen table, seized my satchel, escaping via the kitchen portal and into my vehicle, where I inhaled deeply of the fresh air. I observed Mother at the expansive bay window, observing me. She appeared angered and distressed, yet swiftly pivoted and departed. I struck the steering wheel forcefully, uttering expletives. Aside from viewing remains at open casket services, I had never before beheld a deceased human form, much less one that had demonstrably been lifeless for weeks. Yet grandmother was unequivocally deceased, and my mother and uncle were residing within that house alongside her cadaver, cleansing it, attempting to nourish it, and addressing it as though nothing had altered. I flung wide the vehicle door and vomited upon grandmother's untended shrubbery. By the time the unproductive retching commenced, parents' vehicle entered the drive. "Greetings, dear one," he greeted, as he opened his vehicle door, noting my kneeling posture upon the lawn. "Are you well? Your mother telephoned indicating you were considerably distressed." "Parent, she is deceased," I uttered haltingly, indicating the residence. "Who is deceased?" he queried, his tone expressing concern. "Grandmother," I exclaimed loudly. "Grandmother is deceased. Mother and Leo, they are simply situated inside with her body." "Descendant, compose yourself," parent responded. "Your mother mentioned you were in a state of extreme agitation, speaking incoherently." "Speaking incoherently? What is the meaning of this?" I questioned. "Go and observe, parent. I swear it. You will witness it. She is deceased, and mother and Lou have lost their sanity." "Very well," he responded, raising his hands in a gesture of concession. "Allow me to retrieve the cake and I shall enter and ascertain the situation. Simply remain here, agreed?" I slumped back into the driver's seat of my vehicle, activating the air conditioning to maximum in an effort to expel the odor of decaying flesh from my nostrils. It seemed like an extended duration before the main entrance portal opened anew. Parent calmly approached my driver's side window. "Greetings, Anna dear," he spoke tentatively. "Did you observe her, parent? You did see her, yes?" "Hush, descendant," he said, placing a hand upon my shoulder. "Compose yourself. Indeed, I observed her, and she is gravely unwell, yet demonstrably living. Your mother and Lou are providing excellent care." "What?" I nearly vocalized a scream. "Enter the dwelling," parent directed, reaching for the door handle. I rapidly secured the vehicle locks. Parent raised his hands in frustration. "Simply come inside, descendant. Uncle Leo is assisting grandmother into her mobility chair, and we are all about to partake in confectionery." He directed his gaze to the front window of the dwelling. "Ah, observe. She is there." I directed my gaze upwards to perceive grandmother's face at the window, her inanimate eyes gazing vacantly across the front lawn. Post-mortem rigidity had rendered her form incapable of proper seating in the mobility chair. Even from afar and through the glass barrier, I could discern mortality in her eyes and the unsettling openness of her mouth. I retched. Her countenance appeared even more distorted now, as if her final respiration had been drawn amidst immense suffering. But that which elicited a scream of utter terror was the seeming imperceptible shift of her clouded pupils in my direction. I engaged the vehicle's drive gear and accelerated from the drive, disregarding the shouts of my parent and Uncle Leo issuing forth from the main entrance. My hands trembled as I fumbled for my phone, pulling over to the side of the road as soon as it was safe. Ignoring the impulse to flee home and lock myself away, I forced myself to dial the non-emergency police line. Taking a shaky breath, I explained the situation, my voice wavering despite my attempts at composure. I believe my grandmother is deceased, and my mother and uncle. They are acting as if she is still alive. They are in the house with her body." I recounted the stench, her appearance, their unsettling behavior, and even my parents' bizarre dismissal of my concerns. The dispatcher, thankfully, listened patiently, asking clarifying questions. I provided the address, my name, and contact information, emphasizing my fear and the urgent need for someone to investigate. Within what felt like an eternity, but was likely only 20 minutes, blue and red lights flashed in my rearview mirror. A police cruiser pulled up behind me. 2 officers approached, their expressions serious. I reiterated my story, pointing back in the direction of grandmother's house. They listened intently, their initial skepticism visibly shifting to concern as I described the overwhelming odor of decay. "All right, ma'am," one officer said, his tone now firm. "We're going to check this out. Stay here, in your vehicle, and we'll let you know what we find." I watched, heart pounding, as the officers approached the house, their hands resting near their holstered weapons. The minutes crawled by. I could see them knock, then pause, then try the door handle. After a tense moment, the door opened. They disappeared inside. The wait was agonizing. Finally, one of the officers emerged, gesturing for me to approach. My legs felt like lead as I walked towards him. His face was grim. "Ma'am," he said quietly, his voice laced with a mixture of shock and sympathy. "You were correct. Your grandmother is deceased, and the condition of the house, it's as you described. Your mother and uncle are inside. We're going to need you to come with us." Tears streamed down my face, a mix of grief, horror, and a strange sense of grim vindication. My sanity, at least, was intact. But the reality of what lay within that house, the horrifying truth of my family's shattered minds and the weeks of unacknowledged death, was just beginning to sink in. The nightmare, it seemed, was only just beginning, and there we conclude our horrifying journey into the House of Ungrieving, a story that delves into the darkest corners of grief, the fragility of the human mind, and the unspeakable horrors that can fester within the walls of a family home. What happens when our loved ones refuse to let go, clinging to the semblance of life long after it has departed? How do we confront a reality so twisted that the very air we breathe carries the stench of decay? Share your thoughts and theories in the comments below. If this tale has left you with a lingering sense of unease, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and activate the notification bell to join us on future journeys into the darkness. This is the Midnight Narrator signing off. Until next time, remember, sometimes the most terrifying houses are not haunted by ghosts, but by the living who refuse to let the dead rest.